Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of The Awesome with Cody. As usual, I'm yours, Cody, and today we're continuing June's theme of awesome fantasy movies or whatever. Anyways, so last week we talked about Rain of Fire. This week we are talking about 300, which a friend pointed out to me is not really a fantasy movie. Well, I disagree because there's magic. So it's fantasy. Anyhow, 300, for the folks who don't know, is an American epic period action film based on a 1998 comic book series, which is not really a comic book series, it's actually just a graphic novel. But anyway, by the same name, by Frank Miller and Lynn Varley. To basically talk about the not differences, the similarities, really. They made the movie feel and look a lot like the comic with the drastic blacks, not the black colors, not the black people, black backgrounds, shadowy silhouette type stuff. And then the action is very slow motion, but like sort of kind of choppy in a way. Anyhow. So yeah, that's that, and I'll get to more about how they made some of them, in some of the best scenes I think are in there. Anyways, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so the movie is directed by Zack Snyder, with screenplay by Zack Snyder and Kurt Johnstein. But really notably in it, you have a few, I don't say few. There are some pretty recognizable names in it, especially actors nowadays, because you have a lot of people who were, I'm not going to say relatively unknown, but they, at the time, way back in its release of 2007, actually 2006, 2006, yep. There was a few of these people who were not nearly as well known as they are now. There's one, where is... Boop a doop boop. Sorry, I got distracted. I needed to find. I thought I had him selected, but I do not have him selected. Yeah. Nope. Well, that's dumb. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, sorry. I thought I had someone selected for notes already, and I did not because I'm garbage. I thought I was so ready for this, and then I completely and utterly fucked it up. Yep. Nope. I screwed that up. My notes were all good. And then I did not do a very good job of it. Okay, anyways. Sorry. Zack Snyder, director, co-writer. Zack Snyder has been doing movies for quite a long time. His first feature-length film went by the name of Dawn of the Dead. His second feature-length film, 300. That's a pretty ambitious start, if you ask me. He before that he did a short film called Lost Tapes, Andy's Terrifying Last Days Revealed. It doesn't matter, I've never seen it, I just looked it up. He did some music videos. Yeah, but does big movies. So Dawn of the Dead was his first one. 300, then Watchmen, Legends of the Guardians, the Owls of Ga'Hoole, Sucker Punch, which I've talked about on this here podcast before, then Man of Steel, then he did Batman v Superman, then he directed Justice League and the Justice League Director's Cut, and then he has a movie coming out that he wrote, directed, and produced on, I believe it's Netflix, and I want to say it's a movie called Army of the Dead, which is got a bunch of people in it, like Dave Bautista. It's got Garrett Dillahunt, who I've talked about on here before, Chris D'Elia, a lot of people in it. I want to say it's a movie, right? Movie. Yep. Supposed to be out sometime this year, I think. I don't remember. Anyhow, that's for another day. So that's Zack Snyder. I think he's dope. I actually talked about Watchmen. Did I talk Watchmen on the podcast? I know I did the show. I don't think I ever talked about the movie. We might have to go back and do that one day. Anyhow, Zack Snyder, he's rad. Starring in 300, we have Gerard Butler, who I actually talked a little bit about last week because he's in Rain of Fire for a wee bit before he gets burnt up and killed. And this is actually how many different years? Where is Rain of Fire? 4 years? 4 years. 4 years apart. And he's rad. He's made some pretty good movies. He made some pretty terrible movies. But all in all, Gerard Butler's pretty dope. He's pretty rad. We have David Wenham, which probably not the most well-known name for the Lord of the Rings fans. He played Faramir in Lord of the Rings. He was a voice in Legends of the Guardians, the Owls of Ga'Hoole, which is obviously a Zack Snyder film. A lot of people, even though I'm not always the biggest fan of the movie, and actually I'm not at all, is Van Helsing, the one with Hugh Jackman. He was in that. He was the monk, I believe, in that movie. The movie's trash, by the way. If you've never seen it, you should check it out. It's real fucking garbage. Anyhow, he was in that. He was in, like I said, he was in the Lord of the Rings movies. Where's another big one he was into? One of my favorite ones I'm actually going to be talking about probably, I don't think it's next month because I think I have something different planned for next month. But I've been doing a lot of movies lately just because of time and things like that. But he's in Dark City, which I love and I will talk about at another date and time. But yeah, that's David Wenham. Next up is Lena Headey. Most of you will know her as from a little television program called Game of Thrones. She played Queen Cersei, or Cersei Lannister, Cersei Baratheon, wherever you want to put her. She's been in quite a few things, really. The most, obviously most notable was definitely going to be Game of Thrones. She was amazing in Dread, where she played Mama, the drug dealer lady who had a fucking dope ass death at the end of it. She was in a couple different bigger ones. She was in The Purge. She played Madeline. Mama Madrigal was in Dread, but Mama, as her name was. There was something earlier in her career that was dope too, besides 300. She's in Brothers Grimm. Maybe I'm wrong. No, I think I'm wrong. I don't remember what a thing she was in before. Well, I mean, Brothers Grimm was before 300, but there was something else I thought. Huh. Anyways, but yeah, I mean, obviously, oh, she also did a voice in Dark Crystal, which is pretty cool. Um, but yeah, oh, and Troll Hunters, I love that show. Um, she played Aunt Grandma and Uncle Grandpa. That show is so fucking strange. Uh, but yeah, anyways, that's Lena Headey. Dominic West, who I don't seem confused with him with anybody, but in my mind's eye, he's also Rufus Sewell, who's a different guy who's in Dark City, and it's not even that they look alike really. I just keep transposing their faces in movies, like, oh yeah, Rufus. Nope, that was Dominic West. But Dominic West has been in a lot of movies. Most notably, besides 300, unfortunately, he played Jigsaw in that terrible Punisher sequel, Warzone. But he was the bad guy in John Carter, which I believe I talked about. I did not talk about on this, did I? No, I don't think I did. But oh yeah, he was in Centurion with Michael Fassbender, which I'll get to in a minute. I forgot about that. Yeah, he plays a scumbag in most pretty much anything he's in. But he's pretty good at scumbag. So Dominic West is pretty dope. Television wise, he was in one of my favorite HBO shows, which I've talked about on this podcast a couple years ago, called The Wire. He was the main dude in it, Jimmy McNulty. So that's what I always think of when I think of him. Is I mean, whenever I remember or realize who he is, not Rufus Sewell, he's Dominic West. I'm like, oh yeah, from The Wire. And again, because I know who they are, it just for some reason, when I think of a movie with Rufus Sewell in it, I'm like, oh, that's Dominic. Nope, that's Rufus Sewell. Oh yeah, that's Dominic. Nope, that's Rufus Sewell. And then like, I'm so dumb. Anyhow, Dominic West, he's rad. Don't watch Punisher Warzone. Next up is Michael Fassbender, who I talked about a second ago. Michael Fassbender has a pretty storied career. Probably most popular now as the younger cinematic version of Magneto. Originally, showed up as the younger version of him in X-Men First Class. Been in a lot of things. One of his best performances in the movie called The Counselor. It's also, there's a scene in that. It's dirty, but also, well, there's two really dirty scenes in that movie. But the one I'm talking about is him. I believe it's having phone sex with his fiance or wife. But it's not even the dirty talk that's awesome about the scene. It's this smile that grows on his face that just makes me think he would be an amazing Joker. He's an amazing actor. But there's something about that. The smile that's in that is just ridiculous. Anyhow, Michael Fassbender, he's in Centurion, like I said. He's in Inglourious Bastards. He's in, like I said, he's in the X-Men the prequels reboot of X-Men, the younger versions. He played David in the prequels to the Alien movies, where he started off with in Prometheus, and then later on in Alien Covenant, and I think he's supposed to be in the other one too. He was in Assassin's Creed, which is a critically underrated movie, if you ask me. It's a really fun movie. They did extremely well. They did a really good job with it. He played Steve Jobs in the movie Steve Jobs. He was Macbeth in... Who directed that one? I can't remember. In 2015. Justin Kuzzle, right? Yeah, Justin Kuzzle. Who is not a really big name. I don't know why that was a thing, but he did direct Assassin's Creed with Michael Fassbender. But I think it came out last year. A movie called History of the Kelly Gang, which looks really good. Has a bunch of good actors in it as well, but that's for another day. Yeah, it's like Michael Fassbender. If you haven't seen The Counselor, you should see it. Only for 2 scenes. Well, we'll go 3 scenes. The scene he's doing the sexy talk and he has the Joker smile. The catfish scene. Is it catfish scene or suckerfish? I want to say it's catfish. Yeah, catfish scene. And the Texas necktie, I think is what they call it in that. Anyways, watch the movie. It's fucking insane. But you should watch it because it's awesome as well. Yeah, it's Michael Fassbender. And last up, the other person I tagged in this because there was another person, but I don't know what I did with his pull up. I thought I had it on there, but I didn't pay attention to it at all. Is Rodrigo Santoro. He is sort of kind of unrecognizable in this movie. He plays Xerxes. It's because he's superimposed to be bigger than he is. He has bronze skin, piercings all over. His head is shaved, no facial hair. Talks funny. But he's now most notably famous for being in HBO's Westworld as Hector Escanton, who is the Man in Black-esque character that's in that. He's the Spanish cowboy guy, or Puerto Rican cowboy. I'm not too sure what they actually... Portuguese? I don't know. Anyhow, he's in Westworld. Plays the gunslinger guy, who's opposite Danny Newton in that tier program. But he's been in a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff in Spanish that I don't know. But he's one of those dudes where like he kind of looks familiar, but also then you forget who he is, which I know sounds really mean. But it's very true. But yeah, that's him. That's Rodrigo Santoro. Yeah. And then there was one other person, like I said, I thought I had him pulled up, but now I don't see him listed here, and I'm starting to think I'm losing my mind. Stephen McNatty. Oh, there he is. Haha. I had it up, but for some reason I guess I closed it. Peter Mensah, I believe is how you say his name. Peter Mensah has been in a lot of things that you may or may not have known. I think most notably, if you were to kind of think about, what do I know this guy from? He's been in a lot of things, but I would say, well, doggo. But what I always think of when I see this, when I think of him, I see him, is the television show Spartacus that was on Starz. He was in he was in all seasons, right? Oh, except for the prequel. No, he was in the prequel before he got the scar. Anyways, he was also in True Blood, but most notably to me, and he was in an episode of Burn Notice, but again, I digress. the most notable thing to me is he was in the Spartacus TV show on Stars, which is an amazing television program with lots of nudity, extreme violence, great graphics, an unfortunate switch of lead actor, which is not bad for the show, just unfortunate that one of the actors passed away after the first season. But yeah, he's amazing in that, and he's amazing in his short stint in 300 before he gets kicked in the chest into a giant hole of earth and water. Anyhow, the story of 300 is very easy. I don't know the historics behind it because I'm an idiot and I don't really remember learning. I mean, I'm sure I learned about some of it, but nothing in depth. Anyhow, I know it because of the graphic novel and, of course, the movie that I'm talking about today. The story of 300 is about King Leonidas of Sparta, who basically does not want to give up or pledge fealty, submission to King Xerxes and his army. And so he pleads to the oracle and the soothsayers known as, they have a weird name. Ephoros or something like that? Yeah, Ephoros. They're like these crazy, creepy, boil-faced dudes. Anyways, they tell him that the gods don't believe that Sparta should go to war. So he then asks his right-hand man, is his general, to captain? Captain. His captain to go amongst the men and get as many as he can who are in fighting shape, who are warriors, who have a living son who can carry on their name, because that's big back in the day. So he gets 300 soldiers and himself, 301. There's a reason it's called 300. I'll get there in a minute. And he marches them to a thing called the Hot Gates. Hot Gates is a narrow path leading from the shore to the interior valley of Greece, which eventually will lead the army to Sparta after hitting a bunch of other places. Because of this, he believes that him and his 300 soldiers can hold the Hot Gates and demoralize Xerxes' army. And that's really working very well until they get betrayed and Xerxes kills them all. But the moral of the story is not if Leonidas himself and his 300 beat Xerxes. They prove that Xerxes could be beaten. He's not a god king. He's mortal like anybody else. And he then sacrifices himself in battle, not just like gives up, but sacrifices himself in battle with his 300 to inspire all of Greece to rise up and thwart Xerxes and his army. And he does this. The story of this in the movie is told via the perspective of David Wenham's character, Dialos, I believe is how you say his name. He's the narrator. He's one of the soldiers. He is wounded in a way where his vision is compromised. He loses an eye. And due to that, he is not exactly fit for the fighting style of the Spartans. So Leonidas asks him to go back, plead their case, tell them exactly what's going on, and rally the army of Sparta and neighboring cities to rise up against Xerxes' army. And the way he tells it's pretty cool. He goes back and he tells the history of Leonidas from childhood to kingship, and then narrates the bulk of the, we'll say, present day as we're watching it of Leonidas and his 300 battling against the overwhelming forces of King Xerxes to then later lose his life, but win the moral victory over the God King, proving that he's mortal, and that he can bleed, and then he can be beaten, just like his unbeatable army was not supposed to be beatable, including the immortals, and they defeat them, they get defeated, but they defeat them in a way that leads the different armies of Greece to come together and fight Xerxes' army. And I'm guessing win because Greece never got wiped off the map. But yeah, that's about it. Stunning visuals, really good special effects, extremely violent. So if you're against that kind of stuff, I would just stay away from it. But otherwise, really fun, really enjoyable. I think you should check it out. But yeah, that's it for this week's episode, everybody. Tune in next week when I reach behind me to get my notes about what I'm watching. That is an email. I don't know how to work phones. Next week is Conan, the 2011 remake with Jason Momoa. Talk about that next week. But yeah, that's it for this week's episode of The Awesome with Cody. As usual, I'm your host, Cody. And at the end of this, I always like to say, let's be awesome.